We need all the good juju we can. Brr, brr, ma, ma. L is for the way you look at me.
O is for
I watched it the other day, you know?
¿Qué cosa? Parent Trap.
Parent Trap.
That's my favorite movie.
We watched Parent Trap and then 10 Things I Hate About You because they are both incredibly satisfying 90s movies that you can enjoy.
I love Parent Trap. Is my favorite movie. I always tell it to my boyfriend. He's like, good for you. And I'm like...
You haven't watched it with him?
No.
Oh my God. Really?
Yeah. But the other day we watched Home Alone because the thing is, my boyfriend has this theory that like my pop culture is quite lacking overall. And I agree with him.
Did he say lacking?
Sí, no, pero es que estoy de acuerdo. Tipo, every time he mentions a movie or he does a reference, I'm like, I have no fucking clue what you're talking about.
Oh my God, really?
It happens with you too. I don't know if you noticed that or something.
I haven't. Like, what do you mean? Like, give me an example.
Like, for example, the other day he was like, I love Christmas. I've said it a million times. Christmas is my favorite time of the year, right? So he was like, okay, let's watch a Christmas movie. We watched a Lindsay Lohan Netflix Christmas movie. It's
awful.
Like, what? But like, it was Christmas, so I enjoyed. But he was like, I didn't say anything. And then he sent me an article like, worst Christmas movies ever. And then it was that. And he was like, I didn't say anything, but like, this is what I think. And I was like, fair enough, I agree, but it's Christmas. And then he was like, let's watch Home Alone. And I'm like, okay. He's like, do you know what Home Alone is? And I'm like, I mean, I'm sure I've heard of it. And then he's like, but try to guess. And I'm like, there's a kid that says Home Alone. And he's like, dude, are you serious? You don't know what
you
Home
haven't
Alone?
seen? You didn't? What?
I didn't know what it was.
You had to spend 20 years of your life without watching Home Alone.
And then he was like, "Oh my God, shut up! Let's just like go and watch the movie. It's a Christmas movie, and you're gonna like." So,
not only have you wait, that also means that you don't understand anything about the Michael Jackson whole thing with the kids and stuff.
No.
You know nothing.
I don't exactly. You know, that's exactly his point.
Oh my God.
So he has this quest.
You're a podcast host. You should know these things.
But the thing is, like, when what you lack is stuff like that. Like, you cannot go and Google it. You don't know that you don't know.
You're like Captain America waking up from the ice. It's a bunch of stuff that you missed, and you don't really know how much of it you missed.
Exactly. Or I don't even know I'm missing.
Like, okay, I have a friend who hasn't seen Harry Potter.
No, I have. I love...
Yes, but like, give me an example of something like that. Do you have anything else like Home Alone that you've stumbled upon and you're like, oh, I had no idea this existed?
I don't know, like a bunch of movies come with The Fight Club. I've never watched.
Well, Tarantino movies in general.
It's
like Kill Bill?
Tampoco.
Oh my God, Ariana.
It's like, I know a lot about Disney movies. Marvel movies I've watched, most of them.
Star Wars?
Las últimas tres.
The new ones.
Exactly.
So
I haven't watched the first six.
Oh my God.
Okay, so that's exactly his point. So his and like often
I'm in shock.
My movie references are like Despicable Me and The Incredibles, and he is a bit like disturbed.
I'm about to hyperventilate. You have no. Have you seen 10 Things I Hate About You?
No.
You should.
Bueno.
Have you seen the Batman movies?
Again, the last ones.
The Christian Bale movies.
No.
Where the Joker's Heath Ledger.
I've only las únicas películas de the Joker and Batman that I've seen are the ones that have been at the movies, like at the cinema, in the past 5 years.
Oh my
Everything
God.
else I have not.
Oh no! This is bad.
Entonces, according to him,
Top Gun.
La última. I didn't watch the first one.
You watched the first one. The one that made this one popular.
Exactly.
Mission Impossible.
Tampoco.
Oh my God! I'm gonna die.
So his point is, if there's so many things you have not watched, why would you watch the one thing that you have watched already?
Understandable point.
Uh-huh.
I would send it to him as homework. Like, you must watch Parent Trap without me.
No, he has watched it. Like, he likes.
Okay, then if he then why are you making him watch it?
It's like, because I would
put it as a condition that if you are going to watch, for every time you watch Parent Trap, you must watch 5 movies that you've never watched before.
But I like to watch movies that I've never watched before.
But like pop culture references that are important to know.
But like the thing is, come on, when we're together, you know, we would rather enjoy watching a movie of pop culture comes out that I've never watched, and probably he has, than watching a movie that we both already watched, you know?
Exactly the point.
Exactly. So that's what we usually do.
But I would give him like a number of movies to watch so that every once in a while you can watch a movie that you both watched together, because those are also really fun.
No, we've had times like we watched the Ice Age the other day.
Oh my god, Ice Age. Have you watched Lord of the Rings?
No.
Lord of the Rings is important.
And he did a whole marathon of Lord of the Rings and all so long.
You have to. But that's a great caveat to go into the first thing that we have to say in every episode, which is we are kids. We are 21-year-olds and 20. You're 20, right?
I'm 21.
20 and 21-year-old who are talking about things that we like. We are by no means experts in any of this. We are both international politics majors, and we don't really know anything about psychology or biology to a professional standard.
Exactly.
We just hope that you enjoy these conversations and that you get something from it, as we do from just having these conversations. Okay. And I think in our last episode we talked a lot about meaning, about how to have solid opinions. This is how we get solid opinions. These conversations with each other are incredibly enriching, and we hope they're enriching for you, but we're not professionals. Okay.
Exact.
Thank you very much. And then we will drop into this topic, which is the reason why your boyfriend tolerates the fact that you don't know any pop culture references, which is love. Okay? Yeah. We've tried to record this a bunch of times.
And not like in the near future. We've tried in the near past. Come on.
About a year ago.
Yeah. Like the love episode was one of the first episodes we ever recorded in the podcast. Yeah. By the time we did not have any video, by the time we did not have any microphones, it was only us two and Jose's iPad.
Yeah.
So I remember it was literally like the 5th time or less that we'd met for the podcast, right? And Jose was leaving his job. And he was like, look, this is the only time spot that I have available. So like, if you can, let's do this. And like our job is very close to Retiro, right? So like, he was just like, Retiro's beautiful. It's a super nice place to think and
very
to speak.
Good vibes.
Super good vibes. Why not record there? And I was like, yeah, why not?
That's why some of the last season's photo shoots of the podcasts are on Retiro Park, because it was a place where we recorded pretty often, actually. And then the thing is that the days that we recorded episodes about love, somebody always had to do something. It was always like somebody's doing CrossFit next to us, or somebody's doing a yoga class next to us. And it was always 10 minutes after we started recording. Exactly. It was always impossible to actually record well.
Exactly. Or to use the audio. Like, we tried. Come on, we listened to it and Jose tried to play with it, but like,
no way.
There were some audios like you could save, those you could not. So like, I was thinking about it during these days, and then today I was like, cause like, we have never actually published an episode on love. Yeah, because when you're thinking about episodes and topics to talk about in the podcast, it's like, what haven't we talked about? And it's like, what haven't we published? It was like, it's a great idea, and we were like, oh, awesome, let's talk about love. Yeah, and we love love. Yeah, we love to talk about love. Yeah. We're very type A in that sense. Yeah. Like, we love Christmas, we love love. We're idealistic. Yeah, well, platonically, at least. And then we started talking, and we were like, okay, but how are we going to break down this? Because we've talked to each other about love for about 3 hours. How are we going to like talk about something specific? And so in today's episode, I was talking to because we catch up before every episode, and we were talking about our relationships, and I talked about the 4 horsemen of breakups. So the 4 reasons, general reasons why you would or could break up with someone. Then the things that are really positive about a relationship, which are the growth and the good parts, both personally, collectively, physically, and emotionally. And then the meat, meat and potatoes of this episode, which is how you deal with everything in the middle, how you deal with the day-to-day of your relationship, the system with which you handle your relationships, so that it is as successful as possible. We're going to talk a little bit about ambition, circumstances, values, limits, and a very wise conclusion inspired by my dad. So. Exactamente. And to begin, just imagine this scenario. You're having a discussion with your partner, right? And like, let's say that you are the subject in the discussion who is scared that that disagreement may lead to an end to your relationship. Right? Yeah, because... And now... Yeah. Sorry, keep going. Imagine that you have someone on the other hand that instead of just saying, I love you, that's not what's going to happen, comes up with this. There's only 4 reasons why we could, which we could break up. Which are? The 4 horsemen of a breakup, which is ambition. Okay? Which means
if, for example, I want to become a CEO of a company and you want to become the CEO of another company and we both don't have time, then maybe you can't have a relationship. Then circumstances. If I want to live in Australia and you want to live in France and you're dead set on it, you can't have a relationship, or at least it's going to be pretty difficult. It is. These things aren't like if we have different ambitions, you're going to break up, but they are break-upable offenses or circumstances. Okay, so living in different places, long-distance relationships exist. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not. Values. If I, for example, want to have children and you don't, and like for me, having children is something that I have to do in my life because it's part of who I am. Or if I want to raise my children in this specific way and you wholeheartedly disagree, if you believe in teaching your children religion and I don't believe in teaching our children religion, those kinds of value-driven disagreements, if not parsed correctly, can lead to a breakup. And then limits. So if you have a discussion and you say that you are going to be in a relationship that is, exclusive, meaning only two people are involved in the sexual side of the relationship, then the sexual and emotional side of the relationship, then if you break that limit for the other person, break-upable offense. So cheating clearly is something that has broken up many relationships in life. So these are the 4 horsemen of a breakup in a relationship. But they're also the pillars with which you build them, which is weird.
And then basically, going back to our hypothetical scenario, right? Just this other person says to you, like, look, if whatever we're discussing does not fall within one of these 4 categories, there's nothing you have to fear.
Yes, because what happens is when you have relationships, at least in our cases, at least what we've talked about, you have the more important that your relationship is, the more it touches on the truth, the more that it touches on your essence as a human being. And when you are trying to converge the way that you and another human being act on Earth in a plane of existence, you're going to have conflict. There's ways that I do things that you don't do. There's a scheduling problem. Like you have a routine, I have a routine. You have obligations, I have obligations. Merging your life with another person is not an easy task. And so you need to talk about it. And sometimes the deeper that you go into a relationship, the more important and meaningful your arguments become. Because especially in like the first few years of a relationship where you're literally just putting together the things that will make up your life in the future. If you do that correctly, you will have very likely a good, stable source of not only happiness, but of emotional stability, of harmony, a good base.
Exactly.
Right? But making a base, like, how much argument do you think there can be about building a house? It's like the materials that you're going to use to build a house. It can be incredibly diverse. And you can say, well, I think carbon fiber is the best material because carbon fiber works for this, this, and that. Basically, what you are doing with your couple when you argue, when you have discussions about important subjects, it's finding the right blend of materials to build your house with. And it's not easy to do. Like, seriously difficult to do, right? And so you have to have discussions. And sometimes those discussions can be very minor, or talk about, not be very minor, but they can talk about very specific things that don't necessarily speak to the big picture in that moment. And your partner or you can feel like the discussion's gotten so difficult to have that you want to break, like that you feel like the other person wants to break up with you. Because discussions aren't like, well, do you want to have tea? No, I don't like tea. It's like, no. Discussions are like, well, I feel this. I feel that. There's miscommunication sometimes. There's good communication some other times.
And there's disagreement.
Sometimes your needs and your couple's needs don't go together. And, those conversations, especially if you have enough self-esteem to defend yourself and the other person has enough self-esteem to defend themselves too, those discussions can turn difficult to have and emotionally charged. Okay? So it can feel emotionally difficult. Daunting. And the other person can feel like, oh, this could mean, like, especially if it's a person who doesn't have a lot of, or hasn't had a lot of confrontation in their lives, it can feel like, oh, this is going to be a breakup. And 99% of times it's not. And so we were talking about this and we were like, yeah, I've had that feeling before, or my partner has had that feeling before, and I don't know what to do about it. And it's like, the 4 horsemen. But it's not an easy fix either. It's just, it's like a good limit, a good, thing to be touching.
Sí, es como a reference point.
Yeah, es como cuando estás nadando en la piscina y tiene una rayita en el medio de la piscina. Y dices, mira, llega a la mitad de la piscina.
Exacto.
Okay. Es más o menos eso.
Literalmente eso. So basically, we decided to break down a relationship in 4 pillars.
Yeah.
The personal part of the relationship.
Yeah.
The collective part of the relationship. The emotional part of the relationship, and the physical aspect of the relationship.
Exactly. So in the personal and collective, I think you asked me what collective meant exactly. And it's that when you're as a couple, you're also an entity. And you're also a part of society. So it's whenever you're not talking about yourself as an individual. So if you're a couple, if you're a family, if you're part of a community, if you're part of a society, if you're part of a country, etc., 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 that's it makes you better or worse collectively if your relationship isn't there or is very well. Okay. What about personally?
Your relationship changes who you are and changes what you learn, and it doesn't mean that you have to betray your values or your beliefs. It just makes you grow in many aspects, and when you grow, you change. And whatever you learn by loving someone is like, it's something that you can apply in different aspects of your life and in different ways in which you approach situations. So definitely a relationship affects you in a very personal level.
Yeah. Then you have physical. Okay, of course there's the sexual side, but there's also the fact that if you and your couple both have your values aligned and both of you want to live a long life, both of you will encourage each other to become better physically. And that means quitting drugs or other things that harm you physically, or
just sharing, like, for example, eating healthy meals.
Yeah, eating habits, for example, or personal training habits. Exactly. All those things, when you share them with your couple and you're both aiming on the same direction, you have physical changes that tend to go into the positive direction. And then what about emotional?
All of it. There's all about emotional. The person who you decide to partner with is going to share their emotional baggage with you, and that doesn't mean you have to deal with it. It doesn't mean you have to fix it, but you're gonna have to be aware of it, and you're gonna have to embrace it until a certain extent. And
your partners tend to not let you forget it. Like, if you have an emotional problem, your partner understands it, helps you with it, but doesn't let you forget that it's there, which is something that we personally do. At least I do. Like, if I have a personal problem that I don't really want to look at, I can ignore it. My girlfriend comes up and says, like, hey, you have to deal with this because you need to become a better person, and so do I. And the same goes for me. If my partner has a problem that she doesn't want to deal with, I help her, I support her, but I also don't let her forget it. It's incredibly useful if you want to grow as a human being. Okay.
But yeah, and also, like, there's this thing in relationship. My mom always told me, like, a relationship is based in agreements, and like, whenever you have a discussion, an argument or not, you have to reach some sort of middle ground for the both of you. But like, o sea, siento que en una relación hay muchas cosas que se ceden y está mal ceder.
O sea, no necesariamente. O sea, está mal ceder. A mí me gusta hablar de necesidad primero.
Okay.
I feel like necessity is a good marker. What do you need as a person? For example, we were talking about free time the other day. So, free time. What is it about free time that you need? Like, do you need free time?
Sí.
How much free time do you need?
I don't
X amount of hours. Does your boyfriend need more free time than you?
Probably.
What should you do? Should you respect his free time or not?
Yes.
Even though it's more than what you need?
Exactly.
Then how do you handle that? Why is it such a clear answer? Technically, you're just letting go of time with him.
Exactly.
So how do you handle that?
Are you going to answer the question? Is it a rhetorical question? Or do you want me to answer?
I'm genuinely asking. How do you handle the fact that you want more time with him, but you know that he needs time alone? And it's more than... So let's say you need 400 minutes alone. He needs 560. You've done your 400 minutes. He has 160 minutes left. And you're like, I need my boyfriend. Do you need your boyfriend more than he needs his time alone?
That's something that you definitely have to talk through.
Exactly. So my point is, there is the line between if you should, ceder, está en la necesidad. Like, do you need time alone? Yes. Okay. Can I give you time alone? Is it possible for me to make space for this without compromising my necessities either? Yeah. Okay, you do it. The problem is when both of you have necessities that go counter each other.
Exact.
Then what do you do?
Next level, for example, let's say that you two have different religions. But let's say neither of you practices them very como profound.
Yeah, fervently.
Fervently, exactly. So I feel like we have more or less the same approach to Catholicism and Christianism. I'm not even sure if you believe in God, or I'm not sure. I don't think you believe in the institution of the church.
Yes, I don't believe in the institution of the church. I do believe that God exists.
But let's say, for example, that your girlfriend was I don't know, Muslim or Jewish. Exactly. Would that be a breaking point for you?
Not necessarily. Not at all, I think. It depends, of course, on the level of faith that my girlfriend has. So if, let's say my girlfriend is Jewish and she is, if you know a little bit about the Jewish religion, Jewish men come from Jewish women. If your mother's not Jewish, you are not Jewish.
But that's not like that.
Yeah, it is.
It's for example, my boyfriend, his dad is Jewish, but his mom was not.
Yeah, but before they got married,
they were not married.
Okay, then there's difference.
Exactly.
Okay, so if you're gonna be married, in theory, at least this is what I know. I might be wrong. I don't know that much about Judaism. Yes. What I've heard of before, because a cousin of mine married a Jewish man and she converted to Judaism, so her children would be Jewish. So es algo así como que el judío viene de vientre judío. Como que, but I'm not sure, but imagine that that's the case. Let's put it as a parameter, even if it's not. If it was the other way around, if it was me who was Jewish and it was my wife who wasn't, would I ask her to change religions? So if it was your case, if you had to change religions to Judaism to have your boyfriend's kids, would you do it?
The thing is, my problem or my dilemma is, I think I would. If genuinely I believe that it is a person with whom I want to share my life with, and I see a future with, and I feel good with, it is something that I would definitely consider.
That's good. Definitely consider is exactly the right phrase. It's I'm not saying I am going to do this. It's like abortion. If you're your boyfriend, God forbid you got pregnant before you wanted to, and you have to decide, do you get an abortion or don't you get an abortion? And then there's two sides of the argument. Maybe your boyfriend doesn't want you to get an abortion. Maybe you do. If your boyfriend doesn't want you to get an abortion and you truly want to spend the rest of your life with him, you have to definitely consider it. It doesn't mean that you have to do what he says. It doesn't mean that you have to do what you want. It means that you have to definitely consider it.
Exactly.
And I think that's a key phrase.
Exactly.
Definitely consider it. You have no idea how many times I've had an argument with my girlfriend where I thought I was completely right because that's me. And then I've had to definitely consider a couple of things. And then I come back and I'm like,
fair enough. You might be right.
Yes. What you're saying makes a lot of sense.
But then, como mi dilema moral, it has to do with what we talked about in the last episode, is there's things that I gave for granted before, and there's things that I was always taught, como, you should always avoid doing this. You should always be nice to people, sets of values, right? And the life that I'm facing nowadays is making me challenge many of those things. And the outcome is not necessarily wrong. It's just different.
Okay.
Than what I expected, what I believe is correct, or what I believed is correct, right? So like, for example, when I change my mind about like going this event because of a different insight into a situation, and different like...
Yeah, so last episode, Ari talked to us about an event that she was going to go to, and her boyfriend changed her mind about going because of the moral obligation of the event.
And then like this other thing, like let's say, you know, time came. For example, my boyfriend is someone who does not believe that marriage is something that you need. Like,
yeah.
He's not a big fan of the whole thing about marriage, right? And like, he's Jewish. Like, there's a set of not disalignments in some of our
diversities
in some of our values. But like, at the beginning, I was like, before marriage, I was sure I was gonna get married. You know, that was my dream. Come on, I was sure that like my kids were gonna be like Christians. Come on, there were things that I just gave for granted. Coming into my relationship and like thinking long term, which I think is something inevitable, I have come to the, you know, consideration of like, maybe these things could happen and I'm okay with it. And is it wrong that I'm okay with it because I love him?
There's a social aspect to all of this. So we were talking about a friend of mine who got cheated on. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about what happened to his ex-boyfriend after she realized that he was cheating. Mm-hmm. And there's a social cost to cheating. Mm-hmm. Like, if you cheat, you are burnt. And there's like, well, the scarlet letter, there's a scarlet A on you for the rest of time. People know that you're a cheater. Cheat once, cheat twice. People don't trust you enough or as much as they did before. The same thing goes for everything else. There's a social cost to whatever you do. We come from a Christian society. Becoming Jewish has a sort of social cost. Mm-hmm. And let me put it in a very, very visual way. Let's say that you both compromise. You get married, but you become Jewish. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's say that happens. At the wedding, at the reception, in La Esmeralda, there's going to be a friend of your mom's who's going to come up and say, ay, ¿y tu hija se cambió el judaísmo? ¿Y qué es esa vaina? Mm-hmm. There's social cost. Now, whether that gets back to you and hurts you, it's totally different. Mm-hmm. Why? Because if your mom gets super offended and comes up to you and says, I feel betrayed because of what you did, and you feel the emotional pain of that, then sure, mm-hmm. there's a social, emotional cost related to it. If your mom's like, who is this person? Mm-hmm. If your mom understands your choice, is behind you, protects you, if your social environment understands your choice, feels like that's not a problem, understands you, then it's not a problem.
Es que me parece súper interesante, y a veces tipo siempre está esta cosa de que como bueno, en general, tipo, you were always taught that in a relationship you have to avoid being manipulated, you're like taking advantage of, right? So like, siento que me pasa a menudo que I'm very awoke. So I'm trying to look for possibly like, let's say,
I love that we coined awoke. Yes.
It's like, I think about things like this and I'm like, am I betraying myself? Like, am I going against my values, or I'm simply,
transcending them, evolving? Well, there's a good quote from Jordan Peterson in this last book. It's do not underestimate the value of social institutions and societal norms. They're there for a reason, okay? Mm-hmm. Essentially, there's something really weird that I learned in demography class, which is that religion tends to dictate reproductive frequency. So the Catholic Christian countries grew and had their children at very different rate and proportion to Muslim and Jewish communities or countries. They did. Like, if you look at the data, there is a rise or a lowering, and it's the classical way of controlling demography. So you cannot have sex before marriage. It's a clear demographic controller, because it's telling you that literally you can't have children for a very long part of your life. And then not only then that you have this thing where it's like, okay, you can only have children after marriage, but it's you can only have children and sex with the person that you married. So you're controlling for who the parent is. right? And in Muslim countries, the same thing happens. So you have a harem. You have one man and a lot of wives, but they can only have sex with that man. So you still control for parenthood, but there's a lot more children there than there would be in a Catholic household. And then it's a way of controlling. There's a reason behind it. And if you read, and I think my current stance about religion is that whether or not I'm Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, whatever, if I go to Morocco in Holy Weeks, which I'm planning to do, I plan on doing, hacer el ayuno.
Okay.
I plan on doing
Ramadan,
because I'm there, and it's their social norm, and I should have enough respect for them to try it, to find the reason behind it, to explore it. The same thing goes. If ever I decide to change it to Judaism, I will explore their traditions in a way that helps me understand why they have it. And the moment that you understand why it's there, and you say, this is the same reason why it's here in Judaism. So marriage in Christianism and marriage in Judaism has different reasons, but they're similar. If you can join them in your mind, in your way of practicing being alive, in your relationship, if you can meet those ends, if you can bridge that gap, then you're fine. But I think that when you do it carelessly, when you don't think about why marriage is this way or another, why Christianity and Judaism have these differences in the way that they go about marriage, I think then that you're committing a mistake. I think then it should be socially reprehensible. Like, if, government, if in 20 years people decide that democracy is just hokey and that they don't want to do it anymore, then they're disrespecting hundreds of years of socio-political evolution that led to democracy being the standard. Like, you don't denigrate it without thinking about it properly. And when you think about it in political terms, it gets more real. But the religious terms dictate your life as much as the political ones. I don't know if that...
Yeah, it makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense. Es que bueno, también, for example, the compromise comes a bit from like both sides. También en el sentido que, for example, there's religious people who would not even date someone who's not like from the opposite religion, right? Which is not the case of either, for example. You know? So I don't know. I think it's a very like...
Well, it also depends on how open you are. And I think that's part of because, okay, the religion goes into values. But I think ambition goes more into who you would and wouldn't date. You wouldn't date a guy who is in the army.
Probably not.
Probably not. Why?
Because his ambitions hinder our relationship intrinsically.
Because you would be worried about him getting shot.
Exactly.
And what does that have to do with who you are as a person?
As having said that our relationship entails a lot to your physical, your personal, your emotional, and your collective life. If the life of that person who you decided to share with is in line 50% of the time, which is way more than most people, then your life is also being affected or in risk that same 50% of the time.
Definitely. I agree. But it's a clear difference in ambition.
Fair enough.
And what about limits? I think limits is a pretty interesting one. So we talked a bit about cheating, like the social cost of cheating, but what about the personal cost of cheating and whether or not cheating should be a limit? And what other limits do we have? So for example, if I have a polyamorous relationship and I've talked about it with my partner, is that cheating?
If it's consented, then it's not.
Exactly. And then what about other limits? Have you found any limits that have been particularly difficult?
I think, like, for example, for me, as we were like going back to the personal time thing, it is hard for me to accept that perhaps he needs more time than I do. Let's say, as an example, hypothetical example, right? But like, let's say one time he's not in need of that, like, personal space, and he wants to spend time with me. And maybe I was planning on doing something, and my first reaction is probably going to be, I'm going to cancel, reschedule, I'm just going to go spend time with him. Or, you know, and then lately, or like, that was especially at the first months of my relationship, like, stopping and saying, okay, like, I need to put myself as a priority in this aspect. Like, I need to put this thing that I have to do as a priority, not every time, but like sometimes at least. And it is a limit with myself, because he's never been like, no, but don't do that, come with me. He's always been like, okay, if you have something to do, I definitely respect. But it's something in my head that's like, I never want to say no.
Yeah. And you always want to do as much as possible for that person.
Sometimes I just question it, like, is that even healthy itself? But like,
probably not.
And
I think that the proper way of seeing it is something like, there's definitely a phase in which the only thing that you want is your partner, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe every once in a while, what you need is to melt back into being an individual and separate that properly. Mm-hmm. I think limits in a relationship are probably the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think all the others, every single one of the horsemen can be negotiated with. All of them. Ambition can be negotiated with. Circumstances, values, limits. You set your own limits. Okay? So if, for example, religion is important to you, you can set a limit there. You can say, I will not give up my religious beliefs for anyone. Or you can say, I will not give up my ambition for anyone. But when you truly have a relationship and you value your relationship, if you can't set limits correctly, you aren't doing much. And I think that this is one of the key things. In a relationship, you are riding waves. You're riding waves. You have a direction. Once you get all this sorted out, and even when you don't, even when you just start, there's a direction in which you're both going.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that as you live through your relationship, the direction is either true or not true. So either if our goal was to become incredible CEOs who had a family, practiced two religions at the same time, saw each other 100% of the time, and saw all of their friends, you're not going to be able to do all of that. And sometimes it's not as clear as the examples I just gave. Like, maybe it's too difficult to be a CEO and have a family and have free time and etc. But sometimes, even if you do it conservatively, even if you sit down and have values that are realistic, you won't reach them. And then you have to sit down, and like my dad told us, like, look, sometimes in a relationship, the same way that you have with a company, you have to sit down, look at how everything is working and see if it's working properly and where you want it to go. And I think it's crucial to have the ability, more than to know that all these things are important, to understand that you have to have a system that can move these things. It's like the pyramids of Giza are amazing. They're incredibly big and nobody knows how they were built. The only reason why they were built is because there was a system of moving the gigantic blocks from one place to another. That's what you need to build in your relationship. The rest can be argued with. Ambition, circumstances, values, limits. They can all be argued with. But if you don't have a proper surfboard, you can't surf anything. You can try to do it with your chest. You won't get far.
Exactly. And basically what Hoz's dad was mentioning to us is like, again, it's like a business meeting. You need to sit down and negotiate the terms of your company. It's like, how are your days going to look like? Like, what is it that you want to invest the most time on? What is it that you enjoy sharing the most time with? Like, where do you want to live? All those things.
How do you want to live?
And like, I think there's the fear of sitting down and disagreeing that sometimes hinders us from just doing that. But like, the cost of avoiding the conversation
is way higher
than having the conversation. Well, even if you manage to figure it out, or if you don't.
Yeah. We've talked about that video before, the one about the guy saying, if you want to know the price for, that risking something is, it has a price, it's risky. Do you want me to give you the bill for not risking anything? It's also very, 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 very costly. And it's the same thing with our relationship, I think.
So yeah.
I don't think we went into the passional aspects of a relationship today. We went into more the cryptic, more
the core
and the functionings of a relationship, like we
merging two lives.
Exactly. And I think that I'm going to compare a relationship to a bicycle for a good reason. Bicycles are very technical and there's a lot of gears that go into making it work. But one of the most magical things about a bicycle is that whenever you're on a bicycle, you see the world differently. There's a literal thing. You see the world differently. You move faster than you normally would. you understand things differently, and there's this magical thing about riding a bike that nothing else has. And I think the relationship is the same thing. There's nothing like feeling yourself after a year of a relationship like you've grown incredibly. Or I don't know if this has happened to you, but having other couples come up to you and talk to you and feel like you go on a double date and you sit down and talk to each other, and then you're like, oh my God, we're a lot better than this. Like, we were there and now we're not, and that's awesome. Like, personal growth in that sense is amazing. Having a person to talk to who truly gives a shit about who you are is amazing.
And someone who cares about you, someone who's there's this phrase that we often use like amongst each other. It's like, we're life buddies.
Life buddies, yeah.
It's not like we're work buddies. It's not like we're gym buddies. It's not like we're fuck buddies.
You're life buddies.
We're life buddies, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's complicated sometimes.
Yeah.
But most of the times, it's more beautiful than it is complicated. And
I saw this statistic the other day. You know that the relationships that have the highest breakup rates are the ones who fight almost. So for every good interaction, there's 11 bad ones. You know the other most frequent breakup scenario? For every one good interaction, there's 001 bad interactions. So the people who never fight, never have an argument. It's a balance. If you aren't fighting, you aren't bringing in the new different things that happen in the world into your relationship. And if you fight too much, you don't have no stability.
And the system is about learning how to deal with conflict.
Exactly.
And once you figure that one out, I believe, don't know this from experience.
No, you never. I don't think you ever finish figuring it out.
It stops being about the magnitude of the problem. It's just about you perform your system.
Yeah, to the best of your abilities.
To your best of your abilities. And I believe it's definitely worth it. Come on. My emotional stability right now, I think it's in a big part linked to how happy I feel with my relationship and how much maturely I love my partner.
I always get told that I'm a bit older for my age. Like, I act a bit older than I am. I feel like having a stable relationship with which I'm happy, in which I've grown personally, physically, emotionally, and collectively, in which I feel like my weight has stabilized, my diet has become better, my emotional judging of people and like seeing if a person's good or bad has become better, my friend groups have grown, my personal relationship with myself has become better, my hobbies, everything that I've done in the past year and a half has become increasingly better because of her. And because of my relationship with her and the way that we've conducted each other. And that's imagine just years of that. Imagine decades of that. It takes work. No one gets away with not working in their relationship.
And also no one gets away with like not wanting to work with that relationship.
Exactly.
So
remember,
no one gets away
with anything.
See you next Monday.
Remember, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Substack. We'll see you next week. We hope you enjoy.